Hello, TCG and Lorcana enthusiasts, and welcome back to yet another Lorcana deck profile where today we are discussing Amethyst Sapphire, a deck I've been having a lot of fun with. Depending on how you like to call this, you can either call it Amethyst Sapphire Control or Amethyst mid-range. I prefer to say it's more of a control deck since we are playing a good amount of control cards in here. So let's do the card by card for the deck, give you my thoughts on the deck as a whole, and maybe some cards you want to put into the deck for your use. So first up, we have 4 Archimedes. We have the 4 𝐒𝐓𝐷. The 𝐒𝐓𝐷 does allow us to scry when she quests, so this allows us to easily check the top card of our deck, see if we want to throw that deck card into the inkwell, like with Mickey Mouse effect, or other one jump ahead, or if we want to add that card to our hand. We have the 3 Maleficent because it's almost standard. The 4 Maleficent you have to play in any Amethyst deck. Like I said, since we're playing control, we have the Rafiki here for the rush. We have the Mickey Mouse for the Sapphire. We do get a lot of times up to 10 ink, so Belle is very, very strong in the late game to win the games. That 5 lore is very, very strong in the late game. We have the Queen to draw. For Queen to draw, we have 4 Maleficent because she just quests for a lot and it does do a good amount of damage. We have the 4 Robin Hood to draw a card. A lot of times we may not be on the back foot of, we have a lot of cards, but we may sometimes be on the back foot of our opponent having more cards than we do. So it's nice to get that extra draw. And we can challenge all of those evasive guys that Ruby has. And of course, Summon Emerald. Then we have 4 Dr. Facilier. I really like this. People were playing Ursula. I just don't think Ursula is good right now. If you're playing Commander format with for 3 other people, Ursula's really good. But I think Dr. Facilier is really nice because we're playing control deck with like Rafiki. Having like Dr. Facilier to be there, send in your Rafikis or even some of your guys like Archimedes, Maleficence. Heck, Maleficence a lot. Even your Queens and your Maleficence. Heck, even your Hades. Swing in and start beating stuff over and just removing them off the field. Dr. Facilier just returning them back to your hand. And if you have 2 Dr. Faciliers on the field, he actually combos one with the other, allowing you to remove 1 Dr. Facilier and return back to your hand. Yes, he's a steep cost of 7, but we are a ramp deck, so a lot of times we can probably bring one out one turn and then another one out next turn. But this is really, really good. I've been having a lot of fun with Dr. Facilier, especially when you combo it like with this Hades, because this Hades spins annoying stuff into your opponent's inkwell. But if you send it in to die at stuff, like deal damage or remove stuff off the board or anything like that, then you can return to your hand and then play it again next turn and always threaten the fact that you're going to have this Hades always spinning something to your opponent's inkwell. Yes, they'll get a lot of ink, but if they're only drawing, say, a card a turn, how good is that if I can swing in quest or swing into one of your guys, control your board presence, and bring my guy back to my hand and bring him and then summon again. So a lot of times you'll see a lot of people try to deal with the Dr. Facilier. That's why I say don't really quest with Dr. Facilier. Kind of just keep him sitting there. Quest with his 3 when it's advantageous for winning the game. Then we have the 3 Elsa because we're a control deck. She's just very good late game to freeze, not mentioning because we are a ramp deck as well, and we do have a lot of ramping cards from Mickey Mouse to 4 one jump ahead, which puts a card in our inkwell as well. So a lot of times Elsa is very, very strong getting to your mid game because you'll have possibly around the 8 ink around your mid to early late game. So while a lot of decks are struggling, you can start freezing stuff and start going for games. Not mentioning again, smashing into things to control board presence and then spinning it back with Dr. Facilier. We have the 4 one jump ahead because again we like to ramp. There's very little times I've sung this. A common person to sing this off of is Grandma Tala. I don't have Grandma Tala in here, but you could do Grandma Tala sing to do this. A lot of times this is what my turn 2 play is. Ink, 1 jump ahead, and then by turn 3, I'm already up to 3 ink, 4 ink. Mickey Mouse makes it 5. You have to play the 4 Friends. Amethyst is best draw card, and we have the 4 Let It Go because control. This is a very good strong card, especially if you sing it. Especially if you could have a Hades 1 turn and then sing Let It Go with the Hades. Really, really good. We have the 3 Magic Mirror because we like drawing cards. A lot of times we need to refill our hands and we'll have so much ink. Maybe turn we can actually utilize it. And I am playing the one Cauldron here because 𝐒𝐓𝐄𝐄 can die in battle. The Cauldron has to be removed by other card effects, so it's very nice to have because of the fact that you can scry the top card of your deck. For instance, you know that next turn you're going to play a Mickey Mouse. You want to scry your deck and see what the top 2 cards are. Well, one of them really isn't going to be helpful to you. One of them you want to keep to your hand. So you want to make sure that you don't send the card to the inkwell that you want to draw. So really nice because, again, one jump ahead of Mickey Mouse, place the top card of your deck into your inkwell, exert it, so you don't know what those cards are. As of yet, we do not have cards that can pull out of the inkwell. Do I want that for the game? Yes, very much so. I love to have cards that could synergize with pulling cards and playing stuff out of your inkwell. I think it would make Sapphire very, very strong if you had that ability. So overall, this deck really does do a lot of control. It does have a great Amethyst Ruby matchup because you play so much control on them. It has a good Steel matchup because, again, we're playing a lot of control. Playing the Sapphire engine is really, really good to ramp up pretty fast into your mid-range game. And then by mid-range, you're summoning out a lot of big guys that can do big effects. And then not mentioning, because we're an Amethyst deck, we don't really have a problem with drawing cards. We could draw off the magic mirror. So that way we're always refilling our hands with cards, so we're keeping a card advantage over our opponent, who, unless they're playing Amethyst or Steel, may not have the ability to draw into those good cards. You're going to have an even matchup with Emerald just because 𝐒𝐍𝐿 is an annoying card to deal with. But being able to utilize like Dr. Facilier and crashing like a Hades into a 𝐒𝐍𝐿, and then that 𝐒𝐍𝐿 gets removed and the Hades gets removed. Oh, the Hades is just back in my hand now. Again, really, really nice. So overall, you have an Amber aggro Stitch decks. You're going to struggle just slightly with them. But if you can get your ramp going and you can see your Rafikis, you're perfectly fine. Rafiki knockout blocker by turn 3. Mickey Mouse can knock out anything. Like I said, and possibilities. If you can get into the late game with the aggro deck, because once they burn out of steam, they're out of steam, you'll be fine. Hades, spin the big Stitch away. Elsa, start freezing everything on the board. Just start knocking out all their little weenies and all that stuff. So overall, I don't think there's a bad matchup for this deck. You definitely have a lot of even to advantaged matchups. Again, it matters on what you draw, what you put back into your deck, and what your opponent is, of course, playing. So cards that you can put in this deck. Like I said, Grandma Tala. I don't like her. This is 63 cards. You could buff it up to 67, but a lot of times out of a lot of testing, I didn't really like Grandma Tala because really, you only really get Grandma Tala's effect of going into the inkwell if your opponent either decides to finally hit it, which they're not, or you go and sacrifice it. So yes, turn 2, it's really nice to have Grandma Tala out on the board and then have her start questing and gathering that lore, and then later on maybe swing her into something and then finally putting her in inkwell. It's really nice. It's a nice ramp. I kind of decided to take it out. Other cards, you could play Jasmine in here if you wanted to for the healing factor. It is a very nice card as well. Let's see, what else? I think that's really it for like the Sapphire stuff. I'm not really sold on much else. You could put Flounders in there. You could put the little Jasmine just because she's annoyance. You could also put the Aurora in here. Even the Guard Aurora is not too bad because you'll be able to play it pretty easy. And this does deal even worse with your Ruby matchups. Because again, Dr. Facilier, just so you know, the character has to be banished by a challenge. Not banished by any other means. So board wipes or stuff like that. Another couple cards you could play in here. The Zeus, I think, is really good. You could definitely pump up for Zeus because, again, you'll have plenty of ink by like turn 4 to play this out. And it's a rusher. A rusher that, yes, has Challenger 4 and doesn't have a natural challenge, but does quest for 2. So you can knock out a lot of stuff. Befuddle, I think, is really good for the deck as well because, again, like I said, you don't have a lot of early game stuff. But Befuddle could spin like those if you play out like Archimedes on a turn. Befuddle next turn if your opponent decides to bring out their blocker. So you just spin back the blocker, swing over the Lilo. You reset them back again. Really nice. Again, if you really wanted to, you could take out the Dr. Faciliers for the Ursulas, but I'm not sold on Ursula right now. Maybe in the future she'll be better. You could play the Broom Engine in here if you want to play even more control, especially against your steel matchups that like to mill your deck. Playing the Broom Engine, probably about 2 to 3, probably 3 Mickey, 2 to 3 Mickey, and then probably topping out on your brooms. Just so you can just cycle a bunch of your things back. Those let it goes, put them back in your deck because you can't recycle them. Do you want to recycle some bells to be annoying? So just some really good, especially one thing for sure. Cycling back your let it goes in this deck is not a terrible idea because that gives you back a card that you can use once again in the late game to deal with your opponent. So not a bad idea. Maybe playing little Elsa to shift over big Elsa a little earlier. Playing this Dr. Facilier to shift a little earlier to this Dr. Facilier. I was playing this Dr. Facilier, but I dropped it back for the 𝐒𝐓𝐻𝐿. So I think I like the 𝐒𝐓𝐻𝐿's quest to look at the top card of my deck to kind of figure out if I want to have it in my hand as my next draw or put it in the bottom of my deck. So I decided to drop it and just play Dr. Facilier hard casting it. Again, we can get to 7 ink pretty early in the game, so there's not really a concern of shifting 2 turns earlier. You could put the Jafar in here as well. I don't think you get a big hand size in this deck, so this is really going to work. You could put the Jetson and Flotsam if you want to, but like I said, I think the real cards if you want to adjust this deck would be Zeus, Befuddle, Mickey Mouse, the Brooms, maybe Dr. Facilier if you wanted that, and then over in Sapphire, Grandma Tala. I think those are really the cards that you could readjust or put in the deck or expand out this deck just a little bit more. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments of Amethyst Sapphire. Have you played around with it? What changes would you play? How is your deck structured? And all of that. And make sure to remember that this Friday we will also be doing the gameplay for this deck. So make sure to tune in for that. And while you're commenting everything and awaiting the gameplay video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, because again, you don't want to miss the gameplay video, and ring the bell again so you don't miss the gameplay video for this deck. And we'll see you here next time on Mama Dragon's TCG.